country could focus fully on its recovery. At the same time, we fully believe that it is already important to get ready, plan, reflect about the potentials as well as the challenges of the so-called reconstruction to prepare well for the processes to come. Also, we do believe that some processes of the recovery have already started even now, and it's nice to look back a little bit to see what has been already done in the case of Ukraine. The roundtable discussion is organized by the Department of Development and Environmental Studies of Palacký University in Olomouc, and it is also a contribution to the 50th anniversary of the EADI, the leading European network in the field of development studies, where our department is a member of, together with another about 100 institutions. It is also a follow-up to the micro-credential lifelong learning course focused on fostering of the soft skills related to development and post-conflict reconstruction processes that took place in the early spring this year at our department and were organized in collaboration with the International Organization for Migration. Back then, the course was completed by almost 30 participants, the Ukrainian refugees living in the Czech Republic and being motivated to contribute to the reconstruction efforts related to their country of origin. Before introducing our esteemed panelists, let us open the exchange with the keynote by Professor Oksana Shevel, joining us online. And before I pass my word to her, I will very briefly introduce our esteemed guest, Oksana Shevel, who is an associate professor of the political science at Tufts University. Her research and teaching focus is on the post-Soviet region, especially on Ukraine and Russia, and the topics such as nation building, identity, citizenship, and memory politics, church-to-state relations and democratization processes. She is also a co-author with Maria Popova of a book on the root causes of the Russian-Ukrainian war. Her earlier book, Migration, Refugee Policy and State Building in Post-Communist Europe, won the American Association of Ukrainian Studies Prize for the best book in the field of Ukrainian history, politics, language, literature, and culture. Professor Shevel serves as vice president of the Association of the Study of Nationalities and the American Association of Ukrainian Studies. She's also a country expert on Ukraine for the EU Global Citizenship Observatory and member of PONCAR's Eurasia Scholarly Network, a board member of the Shevchenko Scientific Society, and an associate of the Davis Center and the Harvard Ukrainian Research Center. So many activities she's involved in, so let me now pass my word to Oksana Shevel. Professor, please feel free to take the floor. Okay, it's very far where we have the professor, so I guess it takes some time. And I hear that, Professor? Brilliant. Mm-hmm. Yes, please.
Thank you for the invitation. It was providing the organizer. It is an honor to offer some remarks at the opening of your important conference, the Roundtable on Post-Communist Reconstruction in Ukraine, on post-conflict reconstruction. As a citizen of Ukraine and someone who has friends and family in Ukraine, I would like to begin by thanking the Czech people for opening your doors to Ukrainian refugees so generously that Czechia became the possibility. We all should really ask ourselves, would those who are willing to throw Ukraine under the bus today and normalize relations with Russia will be willing to defend other so-called small and insignificant states, be they Latvian, Estonian, or Czech, in the future? So this war is not just about Ukraine. The stakes are indeed high, and by supporting Ukraine, the West is also supporting its own freedom, democracy, and future security. Let me now share just a few thoughts on the topic of reconstruction. I'm not an expert on the economics, but I do have a few things to share that hopefully other participants in the conference might find helpful. We do not know how and when the war will end, but amidst the war, life goes on in Ukraine. And I'm very glad to learn about this Reconstruction conference, because Ukraine is not only surviving, but is also developing and innovating amidst the war. If we think about where we are today now, nearly 3 years after Kyiv was supposed to fall in 3 days, it is really quite remarkable. Not only Ukraine stands, but it functions and it innovates. The state runs from trains to postal service to local and national governments. Ukraine is planning and implementing a plethora of reforms necessary to join the European Union. New sectors of the economy are developing, innovating, and even booming, things such as drone production and renewable energy. So when we think of the task of reconstruction, I would like to suggest that it is necessary to think about Ukraine's strengths and factors that facilitate it and can make reconstruction effort more effective. I would like to suggest that 2 such specific factors are important. The first is decentralization reform that Ukraine had and its consequences. This decentralization reform started in 2015, and it gave more revenue and more power to local communities, especially in economic affairs. The reform proved remarkably successful. People saw the value of it, direct impact on their lives, and took active part in the process. Decentralized communities were also a key element in the effective resistance to the full-scale invasion, and there is now literature developing on that. And the second and related factor is the strength of Ukrainian civil society. The civil society showed its strengths during the Revolution of Dignity in 2014, and its strength then was built on earlier rounds of mobilization in Ukraine, such as 2004 Orange Revolution and the 1990 student protests. And then when the war started in 2014 and the full invasion took place in 2022, often the same networks of volunteers kicked into action, aiding both the war effort and providing humanitarian assistance to areas where neither the central government nor big organizations, aid organizations, were reaching successfully. So I would urge all participants in your event and everyone else working on the reconstruction in Ukraine more generally to think how to leverage these 2 factors, civil society networks and local communities empowered by decentralization. A recent study by Kyiv School of Economics documented how villages, towns, and city councils, as well as non-governmental organizations and businesses, are already acting as key players in reconstruction. The examples from Kherson and Kyiv region, which were first occupied by Russia and later liberated, show in this study that after liberation, if 40, 30, or even 20% of capital structures remained in the community could be revived successfully. Reaching out to volunteers, activists, and officials at the local level, I would suggest maybe one of the best ways to achieve measurable results, reconstruction results, relatively quickly. And this could then also become a positive cycle. If there is a successful reconstruction project in a locality, people who fled may be more likely to return. Or even if they don't return immediately, they may take active part in the reconstruction effort nevertheless, hoping that this increases their chance to return home later on. What these local reconstruction projects might be will likely depend on the needs and may be determined on a case-by-case basis, which makes this approach not very easy or sort of one fix for everything. But it is important and actionable reconstruction projects may include things such as solar power stations and heat pumps in clinics and community centers, reconstruction of shared communal spaces where communities can gather, shelters for school so that communal life can revive, and microgrants to local businesses or community-to-community cooperation. I recently learned that Ukraine passed a law that allowed local communities to engage directly in trans-border cooperation projects, so that could be another possibility. Some years ago, a German friend of mine shared the saying with me, and it goes like this: if everyone bakes small, nobody goes hungry. I think this saying encompasses very well what would seem like to me a great way to approach reconstruction, and start it now, when the guns are not yet silent. Going local and leveraging the energy and creativity of Ukrainian society, volunteers, local state and non-state actors could yield relatively quick and very impactful results. And even if this local rather than national level successes, they're still very important. Thank you very much for your attention. I'm excited to hear from other panelists about reconstruction initiatives that they're considering, already participating in. Thank you again for inviting me, and thank you for your attention.
Professor Chevelle, thank you once again for joining us at this panel discussion and opening it for us with very insightful thoughts about what are the different aspects of the post-conflict reconstruction that are already ongoing, but also the ones that we have to focus and be very careful about once thinking about how to plan the processes for the future, whom to include and whom not to exclude from those processes, especially the actors that are situated in decentralized Ukraine, in the municipalities, being civil society, but also being other actors that might be involved willingly in the process of building back what has been destroyed through the recent events in Ukraine. So thank you very much once again, and now we can turn our attention to the panelists that are present here with us, sitting in front of you. The idea is that I will briefly introduce each of them first. I will pose a question, general question to all of them, kindly asking them to respond. And then I have also prepared a couple of other questions that are specifically directed to their focus and their activities in Ukraine. And then there will definitely be a lot of space for you sitting here in Olomouc with us to pose questions from your side to be able to for our guests to address them. So, whom we are having here with us on the panel, to my right, Jana Bok-Tozimska, and to my further right, Michal Lebduška. To my left, we have Michaela Mecharik and Jan Pejřil. I will start with a brief introduction of Jana Tozimska. She is the Deputy Regional Director for Eastern Partnership and Balkan in People in Need, a Czech-based international NGO, where she oversees programming in Ukraine, Moldova, Georgia, Armenia, and Western Balkans, with specific focus on operations and emergency and nexus programming in Ukraine and Moldova. Maybe you can perhaps later tell us what the nexus means. Prior to joining People in Need in 2009, she studied and worked in Boston, Massachusetts for 9 years, engaging with people with disabilities and families of youth at risk as a case manager and clinical social worker. She holds a master's degree in social work with focus on work in global setting from Boston College. Thank you very much. Then I would like to introduce the second lady on the panel, Michaela Mecharik, who studied at the Masaryk University in Brno in Czech Republic. She's the vice president of Ukrainian Czech Chamber of Commerce, responsible for Ukraine. She is also a business ambassador for Dnipro region and a co-founder of Top People Czech in Ukraine that matches Ukrainian qualified employees with jobs in the Czech Republic. She has experience in establishing, leading, and developing service companies in the area of manufacturing and people management in Czech Republic, Slovakia, and Ukraine. And now to the male colleagues on the panel, Michal Lebduška is an Association for International Affairs, AMO, analyst specializing in political security and social development in Ukraine and Ukrainian-Polish relations. He studied international territorial studies and Balkan, Eurasian, and Central European studies at the Faculty of Social Sciences at Charles University in Prague. He received his PhD in history from the University of Wrocław, where he studied the formation of modern Ukrainian national identity and the Ukrainian politics of memory. He completed several study stays in Ukraine at Taras Shevchenko National University of Kyiv and Ivan Franko National University of Lviv, and at the University College of London. In the academic year 2018-19, he worked as an associate of the Czech Center in Kyiv. And last but not least, Jan Pejřil graduated from Mandel University in Brno in the field of landscape engineering. He has been involved in preparation, implementation, and supervision of development and humanitarian programs since approximately 20 years, where in last 10 years in the position of the external consultant. He has experience with intervention in Balkans, post-Soviet region, Moldova, Georgia, Ukraine, Middle East, Afghanistan. He has worked for non-profit organizations, the private sector and government agencies. Since 2015, he has regularly visited Ukraine as a part of activities of the Czech Development Agency. He is responsible for the Czech Development Agency's interventions in addition to activities for UNDP Ukraine, monitoring interventions aimed at supporting universities in exile. So once again, very welcome to our panel, and I will pose my first question, and it is, what is your role in the reconstruction or construction and reconstruction process in Ukraine? And when saying your role, I mean the role of the institution that you are representing and you are working for. Maybe we can start going from my right to my left, one by one.
Okay, thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. Yeah, it's a pleasure to be on this discussion here in Olomouc. Speaking on behalf of Association for International Affairs, we are actually not working in Ukraine itself on the recovery. That's necessary to say. We are not in the field, but we are sort of, our organization is a think tank which does more of an expert work, monitoring of the situation, and we also have some projects in other countries, in Ukraine as well, but not the projects that are dealing with recovery, actually. So this is just for first notice. But on the other hand, we've got a project on recovery of Ukraine, but it's more of an advocacy project, and we are trying to follow the discussion here in Czechia on the recovery of Ukraine. We are in close touch with the institutions in Prague that are involved in this discussion, especially Ministry of Foreign Affairs and Ministry of Industry and Trade, and we are trying to somehow involve discussion in Prague in this direction, in some direction. For example, if I can mention one thing, we are trying to drag more, because in Prague, like the discussion on the recovery, it's mostly, as I said, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and the Ministry of Industry and Trade, and we are trying, for example, to involve a bit more, like Ministry of Environment, into this process. So this is one of our roles. Also, apart from this, we are actually starting this year, this autumn. We are focusing a little bit more on capacity building. We will be bringing some people from Ukrainian stakeholders to Prague to show them some examples of the good practice that could be transferred to Ukraine and used for the recovery. And last point I wanted to mention, we are also as this sort of monitoring the process and being in touch with stakeholders. We are part of a group of NGOs, a platform which is called Build Ukraine Back Better. You can find, there is a website, buildukrainebackbetter.org. There are a lot of NGOs from different countries, from Ukraine as well, and those are organizations that are either directly involved in the recovery on place in the field in Ukraine, but also some organizations like us that are doing more advocacy, influencing the process in different countries and so on. So this is basically our role in the process.
So thank you very much for the first entry, and already from the first entry you see how complex the process of recovery could be. It is not only associated with the activities directly in Ukraine, but there are all different important processes that have to be run also outside of the Ukraine. Not only the advocacy processes, but also very, very important processes of capacity building that are related to the ability of the people in Ukraine to also later on themselves become active and owners of the processes of change. Thank you very much for the first insights. Now I will pass my word to Jana Tomzimska, and I would like to ask you to please hold the microphone so that the people online will hear us a little bit better. You can, yeah, perfect, if possible. And the question runs the same: what is the role of your own institution, organization in the reconstruction process?
Thanks very much. Good afternoon again, and thank you for the introductions. As people in need in Ukraine, we have been present for not only since the escalation, but already since 2003 through our human rights department, supporting human rights activists and civil society, and our department, humanitarian and development department, since 2014. So we have, and our department have actually on Friday celebrated this quite sad anniversary of 10 years of people in need in Ukraine, where you see we're still there, the people still need help, and we still continue to provide support. However, not only humanitarian support, we are not only a humanitarian actor, we of course focus on resilience building of the population of our target beneficiaries. And as I mentioned, I think Nexus in my introduction, this is the kind of phase from humanitarian to development. It's being used sometimes in some of the donor documents and some of the strategies. So we're also already for probably a year or longer actually implementing some of these activities and projects that are focused on Nexus and development and recovery. As recovery, we understand not only, or reconstruction, as this word is flying around really probably after 1 year of the escalation, all the donors and international community has been really talking about reconstruction. We have been implementing it to some extent possible, because it has to go on together with the humanitarian assistance. It cannot wait until the war is over, as this is very uncertain. It's already happening. It can happen flexibly in various communities, not only, let's say, in the West or Center, where it's perceived more calmer. These can be soft projects like support of civil society, support of local authorities, youth-focused or education-focused activities. But of course, this kind of a hard component of rebuilding some public buildings, and also doing that in the, let's say, climate change or Green Deal kind of way, as with the discussion on Ukraine accessing or entering EU. This is also sort of on the list. So apart from this direct implementation, we're of course an advocacy actor as well for some of these topics that are target communities or target groups need. We try to advocate for various topics for the most vulnerable, for some of the social policy, for some of the transparency, and it can be various topics. We also function as a connector or a vector, as I would like to say, for international funding for local CSOs, and we are the donor ourselves. It can be either through international donors projects, where partially the project is implemented with our local partners, and also a large portion of the SOS funding, which was actually entrusted to us as people in need at the beginning of the escalation in February and March 22. Czech people and businesses have donated almost 2 billion Czech crowns, and we have basically created projects up until now. We would like to have that pool of money until 26 at least, to be able to also support the local civil society from that pool of money. because it is not always easy to access international funds for the local organizations and civil society. So this is also very important for us, and we want to be at the forefront for that in this regard. We want to make sure that the civil society is also part of the discussion, and they're included in the sort of international planning. And we also advocate for bringing them, not only the civil society, but also the topics of the most vulnerable to the tables of the large players, which could be the governments of the United States, Great Britain, Germany, or of course Czech Republic. We try to also work with the local authorities and civil society to prepare them, of course, to be receiving the funding, the actual funding that should be coming from this reconstruction, from the donors. And we think that we try to be very equal with our partners, but also the Czech experience in accepting the structural funds, entering the EU. I think this is also kind of mutually understood with our Ukrainian partners, that this could be our added value, being a Czech organization, and bringing the kind of perspective where we're close, and we have been also close to each other historically with the same experience of having the Soviet Union entering the Czechoslovakia proper in '68, of course. We also try to support education processes and access to education, which in turn builds resilience of the children, because you may know that still there is a large portion of children, about a third of the children is in remote education status, and a third is in hybrid. And so we try to allow the children to be able to go to the schools, and as our colleague mentioned in the keynote speech, when the school does not have the bomb shelter, which is like an underground classroom with light and with desks, the children cannot go to the school at all if there is an alarm, and the alarms are in some of the regions all the time, every day. So this is really a big barrier for the children's education. So we try to also actually build the bomb shelters in the schools, create those spaces so that the children can be safe and they can continue the online learning. Otherwise, they cannot enter the school. And we also try to support the online learning with the digital learning labs, so that we can provide like tablets or touchpads and laptops and Wi-Fi, and teachers also, or facilitators that would be skilled in teaching and looking after the children while they're studying. I will leave it now here. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I think you can put it back. And I had a key word: accessibility. So the recovery or reconstruction processes is not only about gathering financial resources and building projects, but we also have to see and look how to make them accessible to the actors that could use them effectively within the territory of Ukraine. So now I will give the floor to Michaela Macharik, and please again, if you can pick up the mic so that the people who are listening to us online could have an access to the ideas shared here on the panel. So go ahead.
Well, so what is my role and in the reconstruction, and what can be done now at the moment? So the main thing I think about me was not mentioned here, and this is that I've been living for last 8 years in Ukraine, in the west of Ukraine, where I have, together with my partner, small business, actually middle-sized business. I'm from the business environment. We were employing more than 350 people before the war. We are producing for automotive and for home appliance business. So if you have a car or a fridge at home, so you probably have cables from our company in that. I'm also representing here Ukrainian Czech Chamber of Commerce. I will tell you a little bit later about that. What is our key role? I must say that for the first 6 years, we were very focused on a business, and the business was running very well because Ukraine has a huge advantage for sure. It had a lot of workforce, energy was very cheap, so it was a great environment for all type of businesses. So those who had the courage went there. Well, then came COVID, so it was a shock for all the world, what I will say. And when after 1.5 years we started to recover from COVID, came a war. What happened when the war came? Well, I don't have to tell you, but for sure we had to face really a lot of disruptions, speaking about that people were leaving the country. So one day we had 20, 30 less employees. We have a huge advantage that we employ women, 99%, because the work people do in our company is manual assembly work. But we also have some men. So the impact on our business at that time was significant. My role, what I see in the last 2 years and what we do is we give work to people. We were standing last year in front of a big decision if to leave the country or if to stay in the country. We decided to stay because of the responsibility, the social responsibility to stay. We are in the West. We are situated, located 1 hour from Polish border, relatively safe area. You know, tomorrow can happen whatever, but we are relatively safe. We are 10, 12 hours from the war zone, from the front line. And we decided to stay and to give the work to people and their families. Second, what we do last 2 years, we are trying to visit different countries and conferences, seminars, and talk about Ukraine, talk about the business possibilities for Ukraine, and also to, because, you know, everyone has connected Ukraine with the corruption and everyone is afraid to go there and everyone thinks that we are there in Ukraine and something must be wrong with us. How comes that the business is going so well there? But we are really very culturally, mentally close with Ukraine. My role, what I see, is to spread the information about the nation, how great they are, how resilient they are, how brave they are, because I must tell you, if you don't live there, you have no idea how the life really in the war is. And if someone is saying that in the West it is safe and nothing is happening there because it's not the East, it's not the true. After these 2.5 years of a war, we face there every and each family and individual were already influenced, and all of them are brave that they are still there. Because the first half year of the war, it was very far away. Families were not affected, people were alive. And then suddenly in autumn 2022, they started to bring back dead soldiers, even from our villages. The city where we live is, there are 70,000 people. And then then surely it started to really affect everyone. And for sure it's also affecting us. And I thought that I'm quite strong. If you work during the air sirens, because we let our people to make a decision if they want to work, or if they want to hide. And now imagine that you produce for Western companies, for European Union, and no one really cares. They care only about the result. You get your orders and you have to fulfill. Because if you don't produce, they will take the orders away and they will send it maybe to some other country where it's possible to produce, because in the war era, there are a lot of struggles, right? And we decided with our people, and really we gave here a possibility, our people, to make a decision to say if they want to work or if we're going to hide. Because the first months of the war, the air alerts were really half of the working hours. So if we speak about the restrictions or limitations, imagine that normally you work in a production 2 or 3 shifts because you have machines, you have to utilize the machines, right? So it was not possible because there was a curfew, komandantská hodina, yes? So it means that we were not able to work overnights and even in the evenings. So we were limited to work only in the daily shifts. There was no transportation. People decided that they want to work, that they need the money, and that they want to work during the day, that they will not hide because they consider the risk in our area is not so high. But I tell you, if you face the air alerts during the nights, it's really not a good feeling. We spend a lot of time in Dnipro, in Kryvyi Rih, in trains, and you don't want to feel it. You don't want to, because sometimes you really have no place where to hide. So they're really brave and resilient, and that's it. So, as Vice President of Ukrainian Czech Chamber of Commerce, my role is to connect businesses and to help Ukrainian businesses to enter Czech market. Last week in Brno was International Machinery Fair, 65th, and the second year was presented so-called Contact Ukraine, where were invited Contact Contract. So where were invited more than 30 Ukrainian companies for the possible connection with the businesses from all over the world, not only Czech Republic. If you know what International Machinery Fair is, it is one of the biggest Central and Eastern European machinery fairs. And for sure these companies would have no chance to attend and to exhibit because it's super expensive. If you have a small stand, 10, 15 square meters, you can pay even 10, 15,000 euros for these few days. It was very successful. Also during this fair was signed a memorandum of cooperation, bilateral cooperation between Czech Chamber of Commerce and Industry and Ukrainian Chamber of Commerce and Industry, and all these participants were very happy that they could come and start some businesses. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Oh, what is starting? Only in a short. What can be done? Was the question. The second part. What can be done at the moment? No, for sure. We have to be prepared that the war one day will end and the reconstruction will start, and the reconstruction already is starting in the West, where is no war and where also something was destroyed, because it's not true that there were no rockets in the West, for sure, not only in Lviv and in Ivano-Frankivsk area. Also, we saw directly from our home, from our window, we have a very beautiful view on Carpathian Mountains, but as well from the other side of the house, we have a beautiful view on the biggest European storage of a gas, and we really saw the rocket fall on that place. And yeah, that's all what I was saying.
Thank you very much for sharing with us. How is it to live and work and sustain the people on a daily basis in Ukraine? As have been mentioned before, regardless of how terrible the war is, the life must go on, and we have to also see how the life can go on within the circumstances, how the people can provide for themselves, how they can work under which conditions. So thank you very much for introducing also the role of businesses, especially small and medium enterprises, within the process of keeping the life going on in Ukraine. And I will now pass the mic and the word to Jan Peiril with the very same question. What is being done? What is your role in the processes that we have been tackling?
Good afternoon. So I'm representing here Czech Development Agency, which is presented in Ukraine since 2015, when the first problems, first troubles, first steps of the war started. Until the full-scale Russia aggression, we were mainly focused to support of so-called exiled universities, because once the Russia started to occupy territories, Luhansk, Donetsk, plus Crimea, one of the results was that the universities which are located there were forced, at least, majority of the students and teachers leave this area and come to the area which is controlled by the central government in the times. But how it worked? It worked in the way that they came to the central or to the territories controlled by the central government, and they received some, let's say, slightly abandoned buildings, empty buildings, in order to continue in education. They did not have any equipment. Simply, they had to start since the scratch. So we started to support these universities. Unfortunately, with the full-scale Russia aggression, because we were mainly focused to Eastern Ukraine, Luhansk, Donetsk, Bakhmut, you know, this place I've assumed from the media, Kramatorsk, other places. So once the full-scale Russia aggression started, they were forced to leave again further. So they were dislocated several times, so even more troubles. And currently they are supported from EU delegation, as far as I know, because then I was working with them on the monitoring of these universities. Anyhow, this was still the full-scale Russia aggression. And what is the role of Czech Development Agency now? Czech Development Agency is a donor organization under the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. So it's not a direct implementer, it means we are implementing through the partners. And for your understanding, we have like 3 tools which we can use. It's either call for grants, which is for NGO organizations like People in Need, Caritas and all others which are active in Ukraine. Then we have classical tenders, which are for business companies. And then we have so-called budget allocation, which is for other state entities, let's say, other ministries, agencies working under the ministries. So these are the tools we have. And I think that our role is more about what can Czech Republic offers to Ukraine and what match to Ukraine in their needs. Anyhow, of course, we have some formal documents where are described some sectors which we are trying to cover. Our aim was to have in these documents as wide portfolio as possible, as many sectors as possible, because to be flexible, to be able to react to current situation. Anyhow, if I can in a nutshell say what we are trying to do is to bring the experience of the Czech entities to Ukraine itself. It means of NGOs, of private sector, and of other ministries. And it's connected with our Czech experience with EU accession, for example, because we already passed this period, and in Ukraine it's in front of them. They are starting to do all the reforms, so it's already part of Reconstruction, and it's ongoing. So also this is the moment which we are trying to catch in our projects. And through the tools I described you, it means grants, tenders, and budget allocations to other entities. We are running now the interventions in Ukraine. Once the full-scale Russian aggression started, unfortunately, there was 1 year when the Czech Development Agency minimized the activities because we are more focused to development than to the humanitarian assistance. Because the first thing which you are trying to do there is the humanitarian assistance, direct assistance. But after 1 year, we started to travel to Ukraine again, observe the situation, and the truth is that Ukraine is so big that different oblasts, different areas face to different challenges, different problems, and you can do the development there. Of course, you can do it. Depends on how you do it, how you manage it, and where. This year we already started again like even bigger scale of interventions, and currently we are active in CCO support. It means local administration units support. It was already mentioned here, decentralization and so on, but it's about capacity building in the place. We are working in health sector, of course, because due to the war and also leave of the experts. To other part of the country or out of the country, they are facing really big challenges. So we are focusing also to health. And as I, for example, mentioned, that we are trying also to sell our experience with EU accession and processes. We are now working in 2 sectors related to this one. It's environmental issues and it's forestry. In the forestry, we are trying to bring their government institutions to bring data from the forests and from this area on the statistical level as we have in Czech Republic or in the European Union in general. So this is purely development project. And another project is environmental issues related to continuous monitoring of environmental components, because this is really in the beginning Ukraine, but once they would like to access, they really need to have a good network of these, let's say, stations, monitoring stations, and the methodologies, they need to have it in the place. Plus, one of the big topics in Ukraine is that they want to count all the damages Russia is doing there and bring it to the international courts and bring the numbers and tell them, okay, you should pay us this amount of money. This is the problem. But once they don't have in place continuous monitoring, which sounds maybe strange that it is connected, so you don't have background values, what is normal, what are normal values. So then the evidence is not so strong. So we are trying to support them also in this way. So that's environmental issues, health I mentioned, CCO support, agriculture, what else is there in the place? Sorry. Yeah, and education, of course, because we had a strong line also in education before the full-scale Russia aggression. We were trying to help with the statistical gathering of data in Ukraine, and this was quite a successful project, by the way, before the war, and the results are used till now, because before we bring there the experience of our institutions that the data from the schools are gathered online. In Ukraine, it was gathered in the way that there was a really big portfolio of inspectors, so-called, and they went to the schools and write down, they had the questions, they went there, they wrote it, sent emails to the central institution in Kiev. It took 2 to 3 months. In Czech Republic, it take like 2 to 3 days because it's online, everything works. So we bring them this information. It was before the war. Now it's connected more with children connected, negatively affected by the results or consequences of the war itself. So it's like psychological support, mini grant supports to the schools, so they can do something immediately, and so on, so on. So we switched slightly the type of intervention related to support of education sector. So it's related to our activities now, and what in the end I would like to tell is that from my perspective, Czech Development Agency is now doing like the first interventions once the war is ongoing, and in each sector we are active in. I hope these are the first step in interventions, but we would like to get better context, understand better the results of our projects which are running now, and build on top of that, and to continue in these directions. So that's my personal aim, which I'm persuading Czech Development Agency that they should do it in this way, and I believe they have the same idea. Mm-hmm. So that's in the nutshell that. Thank you.
So thank you very much. Apart from capacity building, advocacy, providing access to services, supporting people in their daily lives through work, it is also a very important aspect of the recovery processes, and it is the creation of the institutional background and support systems that would allow for the continuation of the processes. So thank you very much for the introduction of your perspective and your activities. And now I will perhaps continue with the specific questions to each of our panelists, and I will start from my right, continuing to the left, and the first question then would be to Michal Lebduška, and it reads, how to reconcile the immediate, meaning mostly social needs and infrastructural needs, with the structural and systemic goals like competitive elections, local reforms, governance. We heard about environment, greening of the economy, energy reform, etc.
Thank you for the question. Right. This is certainly one of the very important issues in Ukraine that's being discussed, because of course very often the immediate needs in the places that were destroyed or damaged by the war are very different from what Ukraine's to achieved in the long run. But nevertheless, there are of course way how to reconcile those two approaches. But firstly, I would like to probably mention that, and it's been already a bit said to some degree. Firstly, well, Ukraine is a huge country. There are a lot of regions, a lot of places. Some were directly affected by the war, some were not. Some of the regions are relatively safe, although, as we've heard, like even places in Western Ukraine are under Russian attacks. Even like, for example, this quite small towns, 3 were heard about. It's constantly under attacks because of the infrastructure there, even more often than Lviv, the major city in Western Ukraine, for example. So yeah, even those places suffer from the war, but nevertheless, the needs are very, very different. You've got if you would travel around the places where there was the front line in the south, in the east, then you would see like towns and villages that are basically 95% wiped out, and they almost don't exist anymore. On the other hand, there are places that are that has been and yeah, those places are very often quite close to the front line, so they are still under the threat from the attacks. And on the other hand, we've got places like, for example, around Kiev, where there was also like active fighting in the beginning of the war or the invasion in 2022, but those places are now relatively safe, and you could see, for example, that the recovery is actually going on there in those places. Regarding those two approaches, so the immediate needs and the long-term, you can basically reconcile it by sticking up to the principle which Ukraine actually wants to pursue, which is actually this what they call build back better, because as I guess you know, Ukraine of course had many problems even before the war. It is one of the poorest countries in Europe. It has tremendous issues with like, for example, old industry, ineffective energy infrastructure, and so on. And those are precisely those the sectors that are in need of immediate recovery, but also in the need of recovery in a better shape than they were, and so that's, yeah, especially like the energy infrastructure needs to be much more resilient than it was. So this is very typical example of something that is very needed, especially at the moment before winter in Ukraine, and from which Ukraine will benefit in the future because of the modernization. What has also been mentioned, one of the crucial elements of the recovery is actually the process of Euro integration of Ukraine, which is precisely this part of which is part of this process when Ukraine simply tries to build and to make the recovery better than it was, and to somehow to get also closer to European standards, which is simply necessary in its efforts towards the possible future Euro integration.
Mm-hmm. Thank you very much. I wonder if any of the panelists would want to add on this topic, on the reconciling of the immediate needs with the future prospects or future more structural changes that need to be done or need to continue in Ukraine. You have a chance to add on if anybody wants to.
I think that the EU aspect was mentioned, which I assume is really important at this very moment. And there is a lot of work which can be done on it. And maybe from my perspective, just maybe to add on top of it that it's like, of course, EU accession, it's of course a reaction to current problems they are facing to and connected reforms they are trying also to run or to do related to war consequences like mobilization, veterans question, which is like quite big in Ukraine now, quite big topic, and so on. It's one level is like a central level where they are preparing such reforms. And to be honest, always when I'm trying to understand some, I don't know, employment problematic or veteran problematic, it's rather, but it's understandable because there is the war ongoing, there is a lot of things ongoing. So it's rather chaotic approach and a lot of reforms, a lot of ideas which are trying to put on the table on the central level. And even the decentralization was done in a good way, it works. On the other hand, some mentality like this from top, the things goes down, it's still in the place, at least my observation. But where I'm aiming, it's like to the oblast and hromadas level and capacities, because once the reforms are done, it goes through these channels to other levels, and the capacities, mainly on hromadas level, it's usually like a couple of people which don't receive a lot of money and which have a huge responsibility and a lot of things to do. So like what should be supported immediately and what the work should be focused on is also capacities on the local level. Like work with the administration there, work with people, because how it looks like there? It looks like once you have hromadas which are more affected by the war, they have so-called priority hromadas. The numbers change based on the criteria they are, let's say, calibrating. But anyhow, a lot of donors is in the place, a lot of NGOs is in the place and offering the help. Then from the government, a lot of requests, statistical, and so on, so on. So they are overwhelmed. They need to understand how to work better, how to prioritize what is important, what not, how to do good, like strategy documents for the close future, for the middle-term future, and simply run it, adopt it, and run it like in line with that. So that's also the thing which should be immediately which can be and should be supported and is supported, by the way. Yeah, so that's like another aspect.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, sorry if I, if I may add just a few words. Yeah, this is actually an excellent point because we've already mentioned decentralization here, which was extremely important reform even before the Russian invasion, and it helped a lot Ukraine. So the process of the recovery is actually also very decentralized because of course the government in Kyiv. In the center, they are doing those big reforms. They are providing some platforms. For example, Ukraine is extremely successful in digitalization. So they are, for example, providing some digital platforms. The people on places can use for the recovery. But actually, the recovery itself is very often more on the local level, and the crucial actors are in the local communities. The hromadas. So hromada in Ukraine is a local community, and what is extremely important to understand is that there are different people in different communities. The communities are in a different shape, and they've got different capacities, so some of the communities are pretty successful in the recovery, but some of them are really aren't, and even when concerning like the immediate needs, I could see this, for example, last year when I've been traveling around the Kyiv region, around the places that were damaged in the war, and you could see that there were places that are really well off. A lot of things were rebuilt. They've got a lot of projects. There are a lot of they've got a lot of international connections, everything, and they are really good at pursuing, at doing some projects with even international partners. And on the other hand, there were communities where like the buildings that were damaged in 2022 were still standing, like in this shape, and nothing really was done. So it also depends on the capacity of those communities, and you can reconcile also those immediate needs, pressing needs, with the long term by exactly by capacity building. Because when you travel around Ukraine and speak to the people on places, the first thing the most pressing issue you hear from everyone is that there is a lack of skilled people, and they simply need to learn how to manage projects, how to get funding, how to get money, even, like, for example, not from the government, because the main focus of the government is the war, of course, but mostly from the international donors, and simply by doing also this capacity building work is helping to fulfill both the immediate needs, but also that can help in the future for the development of the communities.
Mm-hmm. Thank you very much. Yeah, please do so.
This is business topic. Two things. I will start with non-business. Foundation partnerství. I don't know if you heard about them. They are doing amazing thing. They are based in Brno, and we visited them this Monday, actually. What they do, I think they started 1.5 years ago to collect people from different municipalities, so from the government, local government, from different fields, like different businesses, and they are bringing them to Czech Republic. I think this last week is already 8th or 9th round. They are choosing like 20-25 people. They are bringing from Ukraine to Czech, and they are learning them within intensive 1 or 2 week program. They are learning them what we already know. So how to build better. Yes, what was mentioned here many times already. And these are the people who are really chosen through society. So this is not just like people from academic area or government, and they are learning them how to plan, how to make cost evaluation, where to find the right people, how to handle with the future funding, this coming Ukraine facility, for example, yes. Now, and this is amazing thing because I think they have already 300 people trained. What they do, they are connecting them also together. So these are people which have to pass a very, I don't want to say difficult selection procedure, but they are really very specifically chosen through the society from different regions. And these people are then, after each session, also connected together. So they really take care very much that all these attendants, participants of these, I don't want to call it trainings, but education, will be in the future also connected together, and they will spread within the society information how to handle this future reconstruction. So this is the first thing which we like it. I must say very much. They are coming in 2 weeks or 3 weeks to our cities 3, to the west of Ukraine, where they will train another group of 20-25 people. People, capacity building, people. Wow, we are struggling really with the people. So as I said, we are lucky because we have women and we are in the West. But around us are companies who really are dependent on a men workforce, and there are no men. There are no men because they are mobilized, because those who are not mobilized are afraid to be mobilized, so they are not going outside. I must tell you, due to the fact we live there, we really have a lot of friends there, and we cannot go for dinner. Imagine that you have a husband or a boyfriend and you just cannot go out for a dinner. And wow, dinner you can eat at home, right? But if you want to go and visit your parents who live in another oblast, yes, and you are afraid that simply they will catch you on the checkpoints which are between the villages, not only between the ridges, but they are on the main roads. Yeah, so we are struggling with the people. Requalification already started. There is an amazing project which I like personally very much, which made Scania. You probably know trucks Scania. They started to train women to be truck drivers. Yeah. Because in our countries we know, okay, ladies are more on languages and men are more technical, yes. So I was just thinking really in deep about that. This is only coming from our childhoods and how the perspectives are. They're very successful. I think they finished first 30 women training in Ukraine to make from them huge truck drivers. Unfortunately, we cannot retrain our ladies to be a warehouseman, right? Because despite we have a forklifts and all these needed tools to make the work in a warehouse easier, simply it's needed time to time to move very heavy boxes from left to right. Speaking about maintenance, we have a maintenance guys who were trained for 5-7 years to know how to change the tools on a very specific crimping machines we have. And you also cannot learn this very easy to lady if you are not technical. And for sure those technical ladies who are there, they are not there because they already have a work generously paid somewhere else. So requalification is needed, is very important, and it already started, but there is a huge lack of workforce who left the country. And, well, I'm forever optimist, but I'm very pessimistic in this, that they will come back. Because left ladies with the kids, sometimes they had men outside who were legally or illegally working, simply they were out of Ukraine. So there are families who are outside of Ukraine together. If they come back, it's a question, because now there is a huge threat for men who left illegally the country that if they come back, they will be executed, kind of executed. If they will be executed, so we don't know who will rebuild the country, right? Because these men hands will be needed. So maybe some people from, I don't know, which country will come and will reconstruct and rebuild the country. And those women who left and their men maybe accidentally died in the war, yes, so they are building, or they build already new families in the West, and their kids, if they have kids, young kids started to go to schools, and they have new friends, and the families have a new relations around, and why they should go back, right? Because they found the jobs already, and I must say that I know really good examples of ladies who found already jobs in the areas they were educated, and they are really not working as a cleaning ladies or as some manual workforce. It always depends on a person. Yeah, if you come and you don't want to learn the language, I know also a lot of examples from Czech Republic where ladies came and they simply live in Ukrainian society. They live together, they work together, they spend free time together. Not like how they can learn the language, right? Mm-hmm. We came to Ukraine. I like to say my family always wanted me to be a diplomat, so I had to study French language. And I'm in Ukraine at the moment. I'm happy I'm in Ukraine and not in France, I must say. But no one wanted to speak with us English, because a huge problem in cities in Ukraine is that they unfortunately is a language. Mm-hmm. It's a huge trouble. And we had to learn Ukrainian to succeed and to be able to communicate with our key people. We had the key people who spoke English, but now we don't have them because they are in the war or they left the country or whatever. And the language is a huge problem. So not only requalification, but we need to learn Ukrainian language and English, to be able to communicate with them, and we need to show them how it's important. Because I still daily feel they don't understand, especially people from smaller cities. I don't speak about Lviv or about Kiev. These are touristic cities, touristic centers or business centers, and their people for sure have the language, but we will not build manufacturing plant in Lviv or in Kiev. Why? Because it's very expensive, and we want to give work to people. We all want to give them work, and work you can give in a bigger scale only if you build their manufacturing plants, which can employ hundreds, maybe thousands of people, and not only in the West. They are in the West. Our neighbors are companies who employed 15 years ago, 20 years ago, when they were built, 8,000 people.
So we hear also what are the needs within the even including the business sector. So we are again with the need to build the capacities, but also with the need to build the capacities outside of the main centers. I will now turn my question to Jana. The People in Need has a long record of working in Ukraine and interacting with civil society, and that proved relatively strong and solid in Ukraine as compared to also other neighboring countries. So what is the role of the Ukrainian civil society in the post-conflict reconstruction, and how you're working with them?
Thank you. And if I can just add on to the topic that was previous before I answer the question, because we're also engaged in the kind of workforce development, where we see the brain drain from Ukraine, as it was already discussed. But we also have to be very honest in what are the needs in the EU. It's the workforce. So actually, I was just in Moldova last week, and there has been about 2 or 3 million people left Moldova, are not coming back. They're employed within the EU. They're having visas, and the EU is welcoming it. The same probably for a large amount of the Ukraine refugees, and as it was mentioned here already. So so I think that also, like when there are some of the discussions against refugees, when you hear some of those narratives, what is really the revenue that the Ukrainian women who came here, because they are in the workforce, they are already contributing to our Czech national budget because they are paying taxes. It's not like, and this is counted, this is accounted for, there are data. So I think this is also important to say, but of course, how is that going to play out when the war is over? And the people are already settled maybe in the countries where they're already for several years, and their children have friends, and they go to school there, and they learn the language. But for the workforce in Ukraine, what People in Need is already also doing is we have, for example, contributed to 150 companies who relocated from the Donbas region, from the temporarily occupied territories to the other areas in Ukraine to be able to restart the businesses again. We're also working in reskilling and giving individual grants, like if someone wants to exactly learn English, learn better Ukrainian, or learn a certain skill or reskill. Something that will be very important will be returning veterans. These will be men mainly, but also women without limbs, with some disability, with stigma. So how is that going to impact their lives and the lives of their families if the, let's say, main breadwinner was mom, but now there will be a dad, let's say like without both arms? What can he do? Can he really, functionally, be included in the society and in the workforce? And so how can we not only NGOs and local organizations, but also the local government, the policy, and the private sector in Ukraine, how can they be ready for it? And how can they then really include those people? Because you will have thousands of people returning, and they will not be fully healthy. So I just wanted to kind of say, because this is something that we're also discussing and actually trying to react also with some of our PSS programming and working with the families already of the returned veterans. And for the CSOs, yes, I mentioned it in the beginning. For us, it's really like about the resilience building, and civil society and the local NGOs and local organizations are part of that right there. So it's just only people in need, and there are hundreds of civil society organizations and the civil society as a whole, which would be every one of you who is active, who cares. How do we go about resilience building, and how do we go about replenishing the resilience within the war? Within the 2.5, almost 3 years? How do we continuously go ahead like in our lives when the rockets are falling on our homes all the time? So this is something that we try to chip in at least. I'm always very humble when I'm in the panel with Ukrainian colleagues, because I've been only coming to Ukraine for the past 2.5 years. Before I was focused on a different region, but I think it's very important for us to be very humble, and always, although we have such a conference and such a panel in Czech Republic, we're not the experts on Ukrainians or Ukrainian lives or life in Ukraine. But I think it's very important that we're raising this issue and we're continuing to talk about that topic, because it's not in the headlines anymore, unless something, of course, even worse happens, like Akhmatid Hospital in July or Lviv attacks a few months ago or last month. So for civil society, they are very important actors, of course, on the ground. Wherever it's possible, we've already talked about the capacity building and capacity strengthening. And actually, when we discuss with our Ukrainian partners, they say, please, let's stop talking about the capacity building. Everybody wants to come and give us capacity building. So we try to be really equal. And we try to ask, okay, what do you need? Okay, maybe you already know everything, maybe you just need the money. Good, here is a sub-grant, yeah? Even with sort of giving the sub-grants for their activities, which can be humanitarian assistance, but it can also be education, it can be working with the local government, being sort of inclusive and trying to be included in the civil society, in the local town. And I think you already mentioned it, how important it is to be really also providing the capacity building, who wants, to be able to work with the funding. So it can start with a grant from people in need for 5,000 euros, learning how to write the proposal, how to report on it, how to properly implement, how to evaluate, how to write a financial report and use Excel, and then maybe go to a larger donor and get a grant of 50,000 or 100,000 euros from a UN agency, let's say. This can be also included not only with sort of this process as we go along, because it's a lot of sort of back and forth. How do I fill this? How do I fill this document? How do I, how do I submit the proposal to people in need, let's say? But also, they ask colleagues from the local civil society. They ask us, can we get training on taxes, on local tax code, or fundraising, or monitoring and evaluation, or if they work with children on different specific methodologies to work with children, or psychology, different methods in psychology, let's say, or protection or safeguarding. We also work with the pool of the CSOs, which is over 300 local organizations that we have worked with over the past 10 years, and over the past 2 years, 200 actually. So it's been like a large increase after the full-scale invasion. Something we call duty of care. So how do we provide, let's say, the kind of, how do we not transfer risk that because your organization can be on the front lines, and we don't go there because, let's say, it's against our rules. So we try to work with the local organizations, not only to give them training on security and really how to kind of behave more safely. We also, let's say, we can provide them with first aid kits, with helmets, with protective vests. We can do this kind of support so that we take care of them. We just don't say, like, here are the boxes of humanitarian aid, go ahead and distribute them, yeah? So we try to be very responsible in this way. In regards to the due diligence, it's something we try to now really mainstream, is something we call mutual due diligence or passportization. This is something that talks about the risk assessment of the local organization. if people in need act as a donor, just like Czech Aid acts as a donor towards people in need, we had to prove that we are safe to be given money, that we will not do something different with it, that we have the processes, we have HR manual, we have a code of conduct, we are registered, and so we pay taxes and so on. The same thing we want from the local organizations, not to such an extent, but we want to make sure that also the money that were entrusted to us as PIN from international donors or from the Czech people are also properly implemented. Although it can be only like 5,000 euro grant, we want to make sure that this is done well. So if we are asking the local organization to give us the documents to make sure that everything hopefully will go well, we also work with other INGOs and we accept each other's, let's say, the documents, like the registration, the taxes, and so on. So that the organization doesn't have to do it over and over again with every INGO that comes in and gives them a grant. One success is that already UN OCHA, who is the humanitarian organization from UN, is accepting our due diligence as from people in need and is recognizing that when the organization from the local organization goes through the process of the sub-granting with people in need, it's already visible that when they then apply for a much larger grant from OCHA, they know how to implement the project, they know how to report, they know how to fill out a financial report, and they also don't ask them again additional questions on the risk assessment, let's say. Maybe last, apart from the accessing to the funds, because when you, and I assume some of you are students, when you enter the field of humanitarian and development assistance, you will hear a lot about locally led action, localization. This is really like the, sexy word in the past few years. We've been doing it, of course, many years, but now it is really like everywhere, and we actually, it's also a good pressure on us to be implementing through the partners even more and more. So spending the budget not PIN fully, and maybe 5% go to the partner, but PIN spends 50% and 50% goes also through the local partners. But however, PIN can be the middleman. So how do you actually get rid of us, and how do you allow the local organizations to directly access German money or US money or British money or Czech money? It's possible, but small amounts. So we also try to act as an advocate to allow the local organizations to enter these large donor fora, not all of them, but of course like the ones that are ready for it, to be able to advocate for themselves and to be able to directly get that funding without people in need. And then maybe lastly, of course, it's important to know that there is a landscape of NGOs. There are those NGOs that may be large and growing, and there have been there already before 2.5 years ago. So the 30 years after the fall of Soviet Union, there have been a civil society growing in Ukraine and civil society organizations being created, and this has been very strong in Ukraine. So People in Need is trying to really work with the medium size but also the grassroots and the small organizations in a different way, and also providing different capacity strengthening and the different services or different cooperation.
Thank you very much. And I saw you writing notes, and I think you would like to continue, but I would like to focus a little bit the question. You have already mentioned the Scania example, while reskilling or upskilling the human resources in Ukraine. So my question would be, what are the other roles of business sector or business domain in Ukraine, business companies? And you probably also want to react on what has been said. Yeah, please.
That I think that we have people in need in our small city of Stry, and our one ex-employee works with you there. Love the question.
And the question was, building on your example with Scania, reskilling and upskilling the workforce in Ukraine. What are the other roles you see of the business sector in Ukraine? How can business sector contribute to, as was mentioned, building back better?
But as I mentioned already, so I think our role, and this is what we're trying to do, is to show that Ukraine is the country we it's worth to go and to make a business there. And we are trying to show it really every day, if we can, where we can. And Ukraine needs work. There's no work. There is a lack of work. We are showing that we work and we do everything legally. We are a Western company. We have a lot of people, so we are under supervision of all authorities of the city and as well of Oblast for sure. To create workplaces, I would say this is the most important for Ukraine now, because we need to give people work to get them back to the country, those who wants to go back, because many companies, for sure, businesses, not just from the east, bankrupted. Some of them moved. We even, next to us, have a company from Kharkiv. They were quite struggling with the new people, because there is also, it's a huge country, and there is a little difference in the mentalities from the west and the east, and this is another topic. I will not start it here. But to bring the business, not to wait for the end of the war, and no one knows when the end will come. Then is a question, what will be the real end? Maybe it will still continue somehow in the east. Speaking about 2014, you know what happened. We actually have some employees who were in ATO in 2014, yes, and start to attract businesses to Ukraine, to the safe areas, and create workplaces for the people and to motivate them to come. And I think we have extremely huge possibility and opportunity, speaking about Western companies, to go now, because when the war is over, everyone will want to go there, yeah. And then for sure everything will be very expensive, and the workforce also will be expensive, because we know how is it at the moment. As I mentioned, we struggle on people. Because for sure it's a huge advantage of the people who remained, so they want for sure more and more money, and they are for sure offering, I don't want to say less service, but for sure we need to get the people back to the country, and they will go back if they have a work, yeah. If they have a work which is paid fairly, we have to learn Ukrainians that it's their social obligation, ethics, to pay taxes, because from taxes then the country can live. It is for sure very well known that not all companies provide legal employment. I think this is a huge topic which should be also mentioned, and we, as we foreigners, foreign companies, foreign businesses, should for sure show people and learn people that this is the correct way, and that the taxes must be paid. On the other side, we are them providing them a correct employment, yes. So definitely to attract manufacturing business to Ukraine for fair conditions, because people who left the country, they got used on also little different salaries in the West or abroad, and for sure they will not go back and work for the money which they were working 2-3 years ago, because only minimum wage in Ukraine, I think in the last 2 years, actually paradox since the war started, was twice or 3 times increased already, yeah. But for minimum wage no one is working, yeah. So if someone thinks that for 8,000 hryvnia someone works, so then maybe this is the legal part. Only in our company, average salary is 15,000 hryvnia netto, or 14,500 netto on hand, so you can recalculate it very easily. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Thank you very much for your answers. And the last question from my part, and okay, go ahead, and then I will pose my last question, and I give the floor to the audience.
Yeah, sorry, I just wanted to react briefly on what was said. First, about businesses and bringing businesses to Ukraine, there is, of course, also a crucial role of the state, first and foremost of Ukraine. And there we are going back to modernization of the country, reforms, and of course, this is very closely connected to the efforts of Euro integration of Ukraine, which Ukraine wants to pursue, but also a role of countries from where the businesses are from, like Czechia, and there is actually the Czech government is doing quite a good job, I think, in this, especially in the coordination. They are trying to bring Czech companies on some very often on missions to some fairs to Ukraine. This is very.
This is my topic. We are on each mission with the Ministry of Industry of Czech Republic. It started 2 years ago. I must say that here we are very good, Czech Republic, what we do for business, but nothing happened until now. So there is no company which would come and which is not afraid to start a business. For sure, I don't speak about these players in energy, for sure, or water treatments. So, but this is going on a completely different governmental levels, and defense for sure, and humanitarian aid. So these are huge businesses, but we don't know about them. We speak about normal businesses. We are always part of these missions. I think already was 5 missions with organized by Ministry of Industry with the support of Confederation of Industry of Czech Republic and Hospodářská komora. There are also many missions led only by Tomáš Kopečný and his team, and those are mostly secret missions speaking about defense and humanitarian aid. And there will be one huge mission in the first quarter next year. I cannot speak about, but businesses are coming. The thing is that why we started to join these missions, because we wanted to see who is coming and who is interested to make a business. I must say that most of those businesses or people we met were observers. Just let's go to Ukraine to have a look how it looks like there. We can go to Dnipro, okay, let's go. Let's see how is it to be 10 times at night woken up by Secret Security Service of Czech Republic, because with us for sure are traveling ambassadors and the whole team from consulate. And we have one success. Because my partner developed a concept called Synergy Factory, and I see a significant role in that. What we try to promote is to bring Czech businesses to the country where we, under our roof, can help them how to start a business and to have such a hub in this safe West, and we can give them for free our knowledge and learn them how to build company better than we did this 8 years ago, because we went through many obstacles, and now we know who to contact if we need, finance, legal, whatever help to start the businesses in our region, and then when the war is over, to continue direction to the east. Why? Because first of all, Czech business community, there's no Czech business community in Ukraine. There is some community from the very past, some men who married Ukrainian wives, and they were doing some trading, and they have some small trading companies. These are mostly older people. There is really no Czech business community. Czech is doing trading business a lot, and then it's the business I mentioned, and this is this energy, for example. I could name 3, 4 really huge energy players energo players who are supporting at the moment with the infrastructure to make sure that there will be energy in each and every part of Ukraine. We were also facing every day for sure the lack of energy, electricity. So the businesses must come because everyone is waiting, and we need to create these jobs now, because we cannot take everyone under our roof to our factory. We need new Western businesses. to come and open manufacturing plants, and to do that now in the West, and then continue to the East, because West is becoming also very expensive. Yes, so if you compare, for sure, who would like to build a manufacturing plant in the East, where it's almost for free to attract now investors, but there are rockets or sirens 10 times a day. I don't speak about Frontline, I'm speaking about area like Krivirich, because we still think to open a satellite company in Krivirich, because we had no people in the West. We had no people. Now we have a luck, because one huge international corporation is dismissing because they have a lack of projects, and they decided to move the projects to another country. So we are lucky because we have new projects, but we had no people. Now we have, thanks to them, people. But this is us, and this is in our city at the moment, and it will not be there in half year because we will take them all. But I cannot imagine there is a really problem in the west of Ukraine with the workforce. There are no people there.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, just
okay.
Sorry. One very important thing. There are. Also, what the state needs to do are, of course, guarantees, insurance for the companies.
But we have it. We have it.
Yeah. That was a huge topic actually last year.
National.
And one last point, one sentence. Literally, returning the people from abroad, this is precisely why you need to modernize the country, to be the country well off, to the economic growth. It's everything about economy in the end. You can see a very, very good example in Europe, which is Poland, where also 2 million people left after they entered the EU, but a lot of people actually are now coming back, and there is a huge migration, work migration from other countries. For example, one of the largest growing communities in Poland now are people from India. So when the country is well off, on a better well off, then they can attract the people back.
Thank you very much for the relevant addition. And the last question goes to Jan, and it builds on what has been already mentioned. What do you think should be the principles for reconstruction? We have already heard about abiding with the rule of law as an important principle. Like we also heard about building like real partnerships. We have also heard about not picking the cherries, but really like thinking about Ukraine as one country that has its specific territories, going to the regions, going to the municipalities. What other principles come to your mind when thinking about the not only effective but just a reconstruction?
As you mentioned, I think that a lot of the things, sort of the ideas were already mentioned. So it's, but maybe like principles of reconstruction, like to put it to some box or like to make it concrete. From my point of view, it's like about human capital, about human mobilization, mentioned already here. It means that all the work which is now, like all the laws changes and all these things, should be focused, of course, to all population in order to minimize some tensions, because the tensions are already existing, like population which stayed in the place all the time, IDPs, returnees, you know, all the mixture that someone has a feeling that some other group is more supported than the other. Then we have the regions which are somewhere in the middle, let's say, and which are not supported at all. This is the topic we discussed, like before the discussion here shortly, that there are also some oblasts now which we can see that they are not supported a lot in comparison with the others. So also the CCOs, which is trying to be active there, is like without the financial meanings, and they are really struggling. And in the end, the IDPs are also there. You know, the same things, but not in such big numbers, maybe, and simply it's abandoned. So, but back to the topic, like human capital is needed to be supported, because based on that, everything others can be running. And it's connected, this human capital is about what was mentioned, employment, requalification, plans what to do, and it's connected with the education system, health system in the place, social system in the place. So it's all connected and should work and should be in the place. And So that's one thing, and related to reconstruction, because now we are speaking about the reconstruction which is ongoing or which is implemented in ongoing war conflict. But from my perspective, once this will finish, there is a big danger that the attention of the world, there will be just a small window of opportunity. And then it will turn to another direction, another big world problem. And we already witnessed this one in other sectors like Syria, other sectors, other places. So what is also one of our aims is to bring the capacities in any way to Ukraine in order to catch this window of opportunity, be ready for that, and really use as much as possible. Because I really believe that it will be not open for a long time with like big financial meanings. I believe that there will be ongoing support for a long time. I hope there will be. But there will be waves related to how big this support will be. And the biggest will be just after it will finish, and it will be not long. So that's also what we should be focused on. Like that they will be ready, they will understand how to prioritize, the systems will be ready, and they will understand what they need, how they need it, and why they need it. Because once they are ready, they can use the money. And the opportunities which will be bring there.
Thank you very much. And now the part of the program that everybody's waiting, and it's the floor for the questions from the audience. I guess some of my colleagues are holding the microphones, so I would collect 3 questions, very brief questions, and you can address any of the people on the panel, or you can address them generally. And after collecting 3 questions, we will have the answers and then see whether there is time for more. So, are there any questions in the audience? There's one over there.
Okay, a very brilliant panel. Thank you so much. There is nothing as powerful as networking, and this is what we call networking. So now, my question, I think, goes to Yana. As people in need, you are doing a great job ensuring that the education continues in the midst of everything which is happening in Ukraine. But I want you to talk about mental health, especially to the kids. How are you handling mental health? Because that is a very, very important aspect. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Second question, before we address it. Is there any second question in the audience? Yeah, there is one over here. Gentleman in front.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for a brilliant panel. I have one question regarding the disparities within the Ukraine. You already mentioned that. Is there any ongoing, say, activity in coordinating, say, donors or NGOs, you know, not to leave some regions behind? Thank you.
Thank you very much. And the third question? There is.
At first, I would like to thank you so much for this initiative. And my following question is just about my afraid of the future elections in the Czech Republic, parliamentary, which is going to be next year. And my question is it possible that can future Czech elections influence effect of functioning of your organizations? Because I'm afraid, and it's possibly could change political support of Ukraine. So if it is possible that future elections can influence your functioning next in the future. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And whoever wants to pick up on the questions, please feel free. The first one was related to the health of the kids. The second one was to coordination, not to leave the regions behind, not to create disparities between the regions in Ukraine. And the third one was the effect of the future development in the donor countries in relation to the possibilities to support Ukraine.
Maybe I can start with the mental health, and then we'll see. I can also maybe touch base on the other ones, but I'll leave the floor to others and then maybe chip in. For the mental health, very, very good question. Thank you. And I think I didn't mention it enough, but this is one of the key pillars of our work as well, is that not only that we have direct implementation in psychosocial and mental health support for children and also adults and the families of the veterans, And this is happening within schools, within so-called child-friendly spaces, which are like safe spaces for children where they can come and sort of lead a normal life for a little while. And in these child-friendly spaces, there can also be PSS activities. These can be group or individual. And we're also trying to work with employers, actually, to be able to sort of take this component into consideration, also in terms of the workforce and the returning veterans, but also the amount of trauma within the population from really the past 2.5 years, or respectively past 10 years. We have mobile teams that we have 12 psychologists on staff that can travel to more distant communities, not necessarily so that they can also access these kind of services, not maybe in the in the capital or in the bigger cities, but also in the smaller cities or villages. And this is something that we want to also do transversally. So in terms of kind of our programming, let's say we help someone to rebuild their house, but we also ask them for the other needs. So we do like an assessment of what else do you need, and then, for example, if they say exactly like, you know, I need to talk to someone because I've been feeling really horrible, or like my neighbor died, or God forbid someone from my family is not here anymore. This is what we also either try to do ourselves, or we try to refer to other either state or government providers, or also other NGOs who provide these specialized services.
Thank you very much. And the second question was related to the not leaving the regions behind. Whoever wants to pick on that.
Maybe I can quickly start, thank you. On the disparities or the donor and NGO coordination, for sure there is. So within Ukraine, but also within the different donors. And People in Need is part of that. It's something that's called Humanitarian Country Team. Or humanitarian coordination team, where we are active participants, and this is where the government and the INGOs and also some of the larger local responders meet. There is a whole structure to it. It has a chair, co-chair, and meetings and so on, and try to do a lot of advocacy also. And then, you know, others can also speak. And in terms of the donors, every donor tends to have implementing partners, roundtables and coordination every, you know, somewhat periodically as well, to know what the implementing partners are doing. And then this is also for us a way to advocate for some of the topics and maybe push for some of the needs that are not covered.
Thank you very much.
And maybe I can add from Czech Development Aid position, of course, once we decide to start in some new sector, our work, or simply to open some new call for proposals. So simply we need to strengthen, to understand better the context. Of course, first of the things which we are doing is to identify other donors which are active in that area, to identify the coordination bodies which are in the country, to get in touch with them, and simply to understand what the others are doing, to do not overlap, but to use the synergy. Yeah, the other question is, for example, Czech Development Agency is usually not, there is a priority oblast in Ukraine, supported by the Czech Republic. It's Dnipropetrovsk Oblast. So once the intervention, nature of the intervention makes sense to do it there from some or other reasons, we usually do it there, but it's not like a main and the only condition. So we have also intervention in other oblasts. But so that's only one geographical, let's say, limitation we have, let's say, in this way, but we are not limited by that. And usually we open the calls where it's up to NGOs or other players to identify the areas which are in need of such intervention, which is, for example, one of the interventions we are running, or it's run by People in Need. It's support of hromadas, as we mentioned a couple of times today. So it was up to PIN and their partners to identify which hromada makes sense. We put there just basic ideas, what we anticipate from these hromadas which will be supported. It means lack of support and so on and so on. Some criteria we put into place. And I went back from Ukraine like a couple of weeks ago. I met PIN implementation partners, and you know, the grant proposal, it's like, yeah, it's written there a lot of things, but to sit with the local partners and discuss all the afternoon why these hromadas were selected, what is behind it, to understand better the context, because unfortunately I'm not in Ukraine permanently. I'm traveling there like 4 or 5 times a year in order to understand better and work on our projects. It was like a great experience. So, I mean, we are coordinating in the beginning, during the identification, and then it's up to the NGOs or others who are permanently presented there to select the places which are in need and to bring on the table the argumentation why it is so and not in some other area. And of course we are asking.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Maybe if I can
one comment. It was mentioned mental health of children. We from the business, I would say, we are more afraid of the mental health of veterans, because people who left to fight when the war started, most of them left as volunteers. Actually, they decided to go because they thought that the war will take 1 week, 2 weeks, 1 month, 3 months, and they are 2.5 years there, and they hardly can get a holiday to get home. It depends where you are. It depends on many factors, let's say. And I'm very curious who will help us, if there will be any help like that, how to handle these veterans who actually are still our employees. I don't know if you know, but in the past, since 2014, it was obligation of employer, legal obligation, if you had employee who went to the war, who signed the contract, or who signed the contract with the army, as a nurse, for example, or as an administrative worker, we were obliged as a company to pay salary also to this person who went to work to the army. Now these men are still our employees, and also I think we have 2 women who left to the war, and we are in touch with them weekly, I would say. We are supporting them directly, not through some organizations, because we want to make sure that they will get the help they need. It was difficult at the beginning because we didn't know how to send them help, not just money, but how to send it, because it was a really big mess at the beginning when the war started, and they really were in need because they needed everything. It was from the vests, protective vests, from the headlamps, through the tires for the car, money for the petrol, computers, but as well cars. Then we started to donate more as cars and quads and all this stuff. And they are still there. They are fighting, and we are in touch with them, and we see how huge impact the war has on them. And I speak about our company, where we have 5 people who fight, but every company has a same or similar example, and these people, there might be much more people, because we had only those 5 men who went, or who army took. But if there is a company of 3,000 people and they have 80% of a men, I don't speak now about mobilization rules, 50% in Ukraine, whatever, but there can be 1,000% veterans, and if they survive, hopefully they survive, and hopefully they will not lose some part of the body, and they will be able to go back to work, and they will want to go back to work. So I'm raising here a question which I never raised before: who will help us, people from business, to learn? Because we are not psychologists, we are kind of HR, you can speak about HR psychology here, like how to hire a person, how to be able to find the right people for your company. But I have no idea how I would handle these people and how to behave to them. And this is not a closing remark, but this is from me a question maybe for you we could raise, because I never heard about any program in the last months, and this is 1.5 million people at the moment on the front line. Should be more, could be more, and I believe that some of them will want to come back, and for sure it's our social responsibility to take them back, because what they would do, yes, how they would live, but we don't know how then to behave to them, because because these are warriors, yes, these are people who have guns, and then they should come back and be again our employee. What we're going to do, I don't know. I'm afraid. We like these people. They are very important for us. We have a strong relations to them, but this war really is impacting them very much. And I think the biggest impact is that they want to fight, but they thought it's maybe for half year, and then there will be rotation, and this rotation they will go home for half year or for 3 months, and then, but not just for 1 week holiday. And if they have the possibility, yes, yeah. Mm-hmm. So here, maybe if you know something, quickly, I don't know.
No, yeah, I don't know anything specifically about I know what we are preparing. I think this is something that we're discussing within PEN, and is being also discussed in some of the donors. But this is also systemic, right? So there needs to be also a health system behind it to be ready. The psychiatrists, psychologists, which are not probably those numbers that you would need for 1 million of returnees who will need a mental health support. So this is being discussed. There is a large USAID program being now prepared, but they just actually scaled down the funding. But this is definitely going to have to be something systemic. It's not going to be one people in need with 400 or staff, let it be, but it will not be one organization solving it, and it will be not only your organization, but all the organizations, all the employers facing this. So this will have to be a countrywide response, and being prepared for it, and already preparing for it now.
So we will have training for that. Yeah.
And if I can just add, the veteran problematic, this is one of the things I was focused on, because Czech Development Agency was thinking about to cover or to try to help and contribute to veteran problematic through EU delegation, which is another source of money which Czech Development Agency can use, and so not just the money from the Czech Republic, if I may say so, but also financial resources from European Union. And so I was involved in preparation of the proposal, and one of the topics which is strongly discussed in among the NGOs, local NGOs, Ukrainian NGOs supporting veterans or working veterans problematic is exactly this one: how to prepare the workplaces for the war veterans, how to help in communication between the business and these people, how to find language where they will find a way. So I mean, at least local NGOs knows about this problem, trying to find a solution and trying to support the companies related to this one. So Legal 100 and there is 4 or 5 big NGOs which are trying to catch this topic also, local ones. And in the end, by the way, the idea of support of the veterans from the side, or veteran problematic, because it's not just about the veterans, it's also about the families which remains in the place, and father is or mother is in the fight, so or fighting somewhere, so they are also struggling and they also need some kind of support. So it's bigger problematic, but in the end, when we were in touch with EU delegation, the answer was exactly what was mentioned here, that they are waiting for some structural reforms which will specify how to handle with this situation, because this is what Ukraine still did not adopt it or did not specify it yet. It's still in front of them, and the Ministry of Veterans, they are even thinking about if to merge it with other ministries, with ministries. So they are solving now another type of problems than to think about these, because it's also sensitive, related to veterans, mobilization. The mobilization is still not in the place. I mean, it's there is so many other layers which influence this problem.
Thank you very much for all the interesting and super important insights that have been shared here at the panel. I see that even 2 hours of time are not enough to share and tackle all the aspects of such a complicated process that we have been discussing here and now. But we hope this is not the last chance to discuss and open the platform among different actors within Czech Republic, but even wider on this particular topic. We hope this is just the beginning and continuation of the discussions, and this is also addressing the call from the panelists that have been saying before the panel discussion, but also during the panel discussion, that all of us have to very much work that the issue of the Ukraine and the pressing issue of supporting the processes, both structural but immediate in Ukraine, needs not to be forgotten and needs to be continued. So I would like to now thank you very much to all the panelists and invite you all to continue, at least informally, the discussion there with our humble buffet. And we very much hope that we can continue also with other panels and other activities that are related to the topic. Because today we have 4 people on the panel that are representing the Czech actors related to the post-conflict reconstruction of Ukraine. But in Czech Republic there are many more other organizations, maybe also business representatives, many other institutions that are working on the processes. And there is definitely a space to invite more and to continue our discussion. So thank you very much to all of you. Also, thank you very much to the audience. And should you have any more pressing questions, please feel free to get hold of the panelists and continue the discussion informally while mingling around. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Děkujeme. Taky moc děkuji.
Tak, teď bychom se mohli seznámit ještě jednou.